Part 2 of worksheet number 4, osmosis. So I love osmosis, but you may find it a little bit difficult if you aren't aware of it. So this is a good movie to go through. So in worksheet number 4, we're going to question number 6. Which statement about capillaries is false? This is answer A. Rich capillaries supply cartilage. Poor capillaries supply in nerve and muscles tissue. This is wrong. There is a poor supply of capillaries, and capillaries is basically blood supply. So in your cartilage, there's a poor blood supply of it. So that's why your cartilage is kind of yellowy, because it's yellowy, it's clear. There's no blood in it. While there is a rich blood supply in the muscle tissue, right? Because your muscles are like beefy red. But those other statements are true. The other statements, capillaries are indeed the smallest diameter blood vessels. Okay, so when you think about carbon dioxide and oxygen gas transport in your lungs, you think diffusion. So things move to and from in and out of capillaries through diffusion. Option C is also true. Osmosis draws water into capillaries. Hydrostatic pressure, also known as filtration, forces water out of the capillaries. We will get into this soon, but know that is true. That's kind of prepping this for osmosis. Lastly, this is also true. Water and substances leave a capillary at the arterial end, and water and substances enter the capillary at the venous end. We're going to get into this as well. So, let us go to see the figure below. Okay, so I'm going to kind of redraw this diagram so we can have a good look at it. So your heart is your arterial. This is your venous. And I'm drawing the venous blood as blue, but the thing is a really big misconception that blood is blue because it doesn't have oxygen in it, which is really not true. Your venous has about 75% oxygen. Another thing, the only reason why your venous blood looks blue is because your veins are actually blue. It's not your actual blood. So at the arterial end, so whenever you think of artery, right? Artery, think about away from the heart. So the artery is going to be closer to the heart. So these are going to be bigger, right? So this is like when it goes to, I don't know, what do we want to draw? What kind of organ? Kidney? We're going to do kidney. So this is your kidney. A very lovely, it shouldn't be green. That wouldn't be too good. But anyway, that's beside the point. There's your heart, kidney. And then, so what happens is that oxygen, right, goes from your heart to your kidney. Oxygen is then taken out. And this kind of goes in a circle, right? The blood comes back in. Okay, so this is kind of leaving and coming back. Right back to the heart. Because then it'll go to the lungs and all of that will happen again. So, lots of oxygen, not as much oxygen because the kidney used up some of that oxygen for its tissues. It ate some of it. But the thing is to keep in mind, so we're going to start in the arterial end, so this box first, and then we're going to move on to venous. So hydrostatic pressure. So whenever we think of hydrostatic, there's hydrostatic pressure, and then there's also osmotic pressure. Actually, we're going to do osmotic pressure. Green. No. Right? Yeah, sure. So hydrostatic pressure is basically the pressure that a fluid exerts on its container. So in this case, so if you think about a water balloon, right, the pressure is coming from water and the container is the balloon. Okay? The container of our water is in our blood vessels. So hydrostatic pressure is going to pump it's going to pump water. Okay, so look, keep in mind, we start at fat and we go little. Now I wonder where all that water went, right? Well, since you're closer to the heart, you're going to pump more hydrostatic pressure out of the arteries. So you're pumping blood, and also it's closer to the heart too, so you have all that pressure. And the thing is that that pressure is just diffusing out of your capillaries. So it's thicker over here, but it's thinner in your veins because your veins aren't as close to your heart. They're further away from your heart. And because of this, they aren't getting that same pressure that your arteries have. So in your arterial end, you're going to have very little osmotic pressure. So this is just proteins in your tissues that are just throughout your body, right? You're going to have very little, not a whole lot. Because there's so much pressure pressing against the tissues that the tissues aren't going to really press back too much. They're like, yes, give us as much water as we need. You know, that's totally fine. I think I just went through all that. Okay, and so now we're going on to the venous end over here. We're going to start with hydrostatic pressure again. All right. Now, as you can tell, for one, the vein isn't as close to the heart. Also, something good to keep in mind, hydro means water. Okay, so whenever you think of hydro, you think about the pressure of water, the pressure that water is pushing on things. Very high with the heart, because the heart is like, it's just pressing it all out of the veins. Out of the arteries. Osmotic pressure is the movement of water, or water's attraction to salt. So whenever you think of osmosis, think water follows salt. Okay, water will follow salt. So over here in the venous end, you don't have as much hydrostatic pressure. Very little. Because there isn't a whole lot of water, right? Because we got rid of all that water when we were going through our artery. So it's going to have very little hydrostatic pressure. Plus, it's far away from the heart. However, you're going to have a lot of osmotic pressure. So the reason why you didn't get a whole lot of osmotic pressure in your artery is because your artery was full of water, and when things are full of water, it's kind of diluted, right? So we're going to go from more concentrated to less concentrated. Well, to be honest with you, it was just going through the process, but now it's really concentrated in the in the veins. See how that is? It's just all going in there. So, because there's less water in the veins, right? So the water from the tissues will go into the veins because the veins are really concentrated. So it goes from an area of high water to low water. While in this situation, this water density was higher, but over here it's lower. So, next question 7. The walls of veins are thicker than arteries. This is a lie. The walls of arteries are actually thicker than veins, because if you think about it, you have all that, pressure from your heart pressing. I would want a really thick water balloon closer to my heart, the source of pressure, rather than over here. So the walls of the arteries are actually very thick compared to the veins. They are very muscular, because it needs to be able to withstand all that pressure that the heart is exerting on them, because the heart is a powerful muscle. Next one is true. Arteries can withstand more stretching than veins. Yes. because they're more they can withstand it. Veins have valve-like flaps. Now this is very unique for veins because arteries don't really have it. The reason why is because arteries, usually when we have an artery, it's going down. So valves kind of help keep things from falling back. Okay, because if you have a valve, I'm going to erase this right here. So if you have a valve, so this is your vein in your leg, okay? If you have a valve right here, this is like a doorway, this will keep blood from flowing back, because that's how gravity works, right? Our blood in a vein is supposed to go up. We don't want it to go back. So we have valves in our veins. Valves. They both start with V. That's what valves are there for. Arteries, though, they're going straight down. They don't really need they don't need a valve. Veins are the largest blood reservoirs. Yeah, for sure. Veins are the largest blood reservoirs in your body. They store more blood than any other place in your body, because you think about it, even though the veins are smaller, the blood just stays in there a little bit longer because there's not as much pressure. So reservoir is like a storage, so that's in your veins. Where would one measure blood pressure? Usually in the systemic artery. Systemically, the whole body. The radial pulse is the most rapid. So if you think about your thumb, okay, this is your ulna, your bone, and this is your radius. So when you think radius, think radical, man, radical. It's your thumb side, that's your radius. So this is where your radial artery is. This is where you just take your wrist, your hand, and you wrap it around. You can actually feel that pulse right there if you press hard enough on your bone. There's some matching there. You can do this on your own. Let's see, what's one I want to look at? Viscosity. It's the one toward the bottom. Viscosity means thickness. This causes resistance to blood flow. Okay, so if something is really thick, so if your blood is like maple syrup, your blood isn't going to flow too well. So that's very viscous. Very viscous. Very viscous maple syrup. The equations, you just need to fill those in. Cardiac output equals stroke volume times heart volume. And blood pressure is cardiac output and total peripheral resistance. Stroke volume is just how much goes in. That will come out, and your heart rate is just how fast your heart is beating. Your blood pressure depends on how much comes out of your heart, says your cardiac output. Excuse me. And then your total peripheral resistance is the resistance that your heart needs to work against. What controls blood pressure? Neuroregulation. We went through this earlier. Chemoregulation, or chemical regulation. So this is like epinephrine, right? So if you have a lot of epinephrine, you'll be all over the place. Sometimes I think my sister has too much of this. She wants to work in the ER, and that's not me. But so epinephrine. This causes vasodilation. In some places, vasoconstriction in others. Peripheral resistance also controls blood pressure, as well as Starling's law of the heart. Starling's law of the heart basically says the more blood that goes in, the more blood that will come out. More in, more out. More in, more out. What does the venous blood flow slightly depend on? Venous blood flow slightly depends on contraction of the heart. Oh, it's venous blood flow. Okay, so a good way, so this is back to veins and arteries. So your arteries, right, remember we have the picture, your arteries, this is your heart and your arteries. Your arteries really, really, really depend on heart contractions. Right, because your arteries are right there by the heart. So in order for blood to flow through your arteries, you need those heart contractions. Your veins, on the other hand, they kind of rely on other things, because, I mean, the heart is too far away for the veins to even think about needing help from them. So with your veins, they really depend on skeletal, the skeletal muscle movement. When your skeletal muscles contract, that will push blood out of your veins and up towards your body. This is why blood pooling can happen in people who kind of just sit around all day. That's why you can get, spider veins, varicose veins, because you're not pushing that, you're not exercising. Sometimes if you exercise too much, it can happen too. You just have to be balanced with it. Breathing movement. Breathing is really good, and that helps veins all over, because that breathing contracts those muscles, and those muscles squeeze those veins, because your veins are all over in your body. And then also venous vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction, as in the veins get smaller. Vasoconstrict. So if something constricts, blood flow is going to increase. Next, we're going to go over renin-angiotensin system.